Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. So this is a part of a series of videos I've been doing where I do a biography on a comic book character. Up until now, I've only covered supervillains, and you can find a playlist of all of those videos with a link in the description box. So for my very first superhero or superheroine video, I figured I would talk about Mary Marvel. I'm going to be specifically talking about the pre-crisis Mary Marvel because there's just so much history to cover, and she's really one of my favorite characters, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Mary Marvel is a superheroine who was originally published by Fawcett Comics and is now published by DC Comics. So she was created by Otto Binder and Mark Swayze, and she first appeared in Captain Marvel Adventures number 18, and that's from way back in December 1942. And writer and creator Otto Binder actually named her Mary after his own daughter, Mary. So Otto Binder also went on to write over 900 of the approximately 1,790 Captain Marvel related stories that were published by Fawcett. So he was a very prominent creator, and in addition to creating Mary Marvel, he also created Uncle Marvel, Taki Tawny, the Tiger, and the villains Mr. Mind and my favorite Black Adam. So these were all created by him during the mid to late 1940s. Now, Mary Marvel is the alter ego of teenager Mary Batson, who also has the adopted name of Mary Bromfield, and originally was the twin sister of Captain Marvel's alter ego, Billy Batson. So, like her brother, Mary has been granted the power of the wizard Shazam, and she only has to speak the wizard's name to be transformed into her super-powered form of Mary Marvel. And Mary Marvel is actually one of the very first female superheroes, and she predates the introduction of Superman's female cousin Supergirl by almost a decade. Well, actually by over a decade. And an interesting thing is Supergirl was also created by Otto Binder, so he was a very, I guess you could say, progressive writer for the time, having created two of the very first and to this day most prominent female superheroes. So Mary Marvel was introduced into the Fawcett Comics Marvel Family franchise 1 year after Captain Marvel Jr. made his own debut. Artist Mark Swayze based Mary Marvel's design and personality upon American actress Judy Garland, who was extremely famous at the time, and you probably know from the movie The Wizard of Oz. And reading some of these old Golden Age Captain Marvel stories, I can actually really see Mary Marvel, both in her personality and in her look. She is very similar to Judy Garland. So when she was introduced in Captain Marvel Adventures number 18, she was known as Mary Bromfield. And in contrast to Captain Marvel himself, both Mary Marvel and Captain Marvel Jr. remained kids when they transform into their superhero form, unlike Captain Marvel, who becomes an adult. And they were given their own series in addition to appearing as the lead features in Master Comics and WoW Comics, respectively. Captain Marvel, Captain Marvel Jr., and Mary Marvel all appeared together as a team in another Fawcett publication known as the Marvel Family. So, Mary Marvel's original origin in Fawcett Comics was in, as I said, Captain Marvel Adventures number 18, and it also relayed her origin story. So it's her first appearance and her origin story are both in the same issue, which is very nice. I went ahead and read the issue. It's actually very funny and good story. So her origin story in this is, as infants, her and Billy Batson are being taken care of by a nurse named Sarah Prim. When their parents die in a car accident, Prim was required to send them both to an orphanage. However, she didn't want to do that and wanted to give at least one of the children a home that she knew would be good. So unfortunately, and this is kind of a crazy thing, especially with these Golden Age stories, sometimes they'll throw you a curveball that's really dark. So what happened is another baby died, and this nurse, this Prim, she took Mary Marvel and replaced the dead baby with her. So Mary Marvel ends up being raised by the, deceased infant's mom, who doesn't know. And she's wealthy and named Miss Bromfield. So Mary ends up growing into a teenager as a rich girl named Mary Bromfield. So several years later, while Billy Batson is a radio announcer, he's hosting a quiz bowl, and coincidentally Mary ends up being one of the contestants on it, as well as his friend Freddie Freeman, which kind of makes you wonder how many people exist in this Fawcett universe. But in any case, while he's doing the quiz bowl, he actually gets a letter from the nurse, Prim, and she tells him the backstory about who his sister is. He didn't even know he had a sister, and she tells him that she has half of a locket, is how he'll know, and he has the other half. So he ends up finding her at the quiz bowl, and he realizes that it's her, but she leaves. He and Captain Marvel Jr. follow her, and another coincidence, there's a lot of coincidences in these old comics, but by coincidence, since she's rich, she happens to be getting kidnapped as they're following her. So they stop the kidnappers and they rescue her, but they're so excited to tell her that she's Billy's sister and everything that they transform back into kids. And the kidnappers who were knocked out get back up, and they gag them both so they can't actually say Shazam again, but Mary inadvertently says Shazam herself, and then we discover that she too has powers. So the funny thing about this too is Billy doesn't think that she would have powers because she's a girl, and this is where it's kind of showing a little bit that it came from a different time. So they go on to explain in the same issue that she has powers, but they're from female heroes and deities and spirits. So it is kind of cool how they tied that all together, but at the same time it was kind of like, well, why does it matter? But I do really like that she has her own roster of heroes that she draws from, and it's actually pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and look at some of her powers. When Mary's in her super powered form, she has these powers. She has divine empowerment. By calling out the name of Shazam, she can transform into Mary Marvel with a bolt of magic lightning. And she has the divine grace of the goddess Selena and superhuman durability. She has superhuman strength from the goddess Hippolyta. She has tactical analysis, which is a gift she got from the goddess Ardane. She has superhuman speed and fleetness from the goddess Zephyrus, and she has transformation which is actually just beauty. So transforming from her, being a kid into her superhuman form, she's much more beautiful. So that transformation doesn't mean she can change into a cat or something, but she's given the transformation of beauty from the goddess Aurora, and she has enhanced intellect, so wisdom from the goddess Minerva. And Minerva plays a very important role throughout really the whole Captain Marvel universe. So she does have one weakness. If you hit her with an extremely powerful bolt of lightning or electricity, it can transform her back into her human form, which is kind of interesting because it can also negate her other weakness, which is having to say Shazam to transform. So if she can't speak, theoretically, if she got hit by a bolt of lightning, she would change anyway, but I don't know if that's something anyone would want to test out. So, soon after her introduction into Fawcett Comics, Mary Marvel headlined WOW Comics, and by 1945, she had her own Mary Marvel book. And she also appeared in the Marvel Family book with Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel Jr., and in her solo adventures, she soon gained her own sidekicks and other characters, so including the kindly Uncle Marvel and her own niece who didn't have superpowers named Freckles Marvel. And Uncle Marvel goes on to be the Marvel family's manager, and he also serves as Mary's guardian. So just before the Marvel family's adventures ceased publication in 1953, Mary Marvel's costume and appearance were altered. So the neckline of her blouse was lowered slightly, her hair was shortened, and she now wore yellow slippers instead of the usual yellow boots. And after Fawcett canceled all of its superhero comics because of a copyright suit from National Comics, which later became DC Comics, she did host a puzzle page, which was drawn by C.C. Beck, and it appeared in Mysteries of the Unexplored World, issue number 1. So this was published by Carlton Comics and came out in 1956. But unfortunately after that, Mary Marvel wasn't seen for years. And it's actually assumed that this puzzle page was meant to be in a Fawcett Comics issue and was passed on and used as a fill-in. So unfortunately, and I really hate the way DC has treated the Shazam family, really in the past, but throughout, because really they were gone for quite some time, specifically because of DC. So after that, Mary Marvel wasn't seen for quite a few years, but in 1972, DC Comics licensed the rights to the Marvel family and revived them in a new comic series called Shazam. So Mary Marvel, Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel Jr. appeared in new stories and reprints of their classic stories. So at least we still had the Shazam family in some form. So with DC's multiverse concept in effect during this time, they revived the Marvel family and their related characters within the DC universe, but they were on a parallel world of Earth, and the Fawcett material was still considered canon, with the Marvel family having been lived in a state of suspended animation for the 20 years since Fawcett had stopped publishing them. So this was explained as Dr. Sivana having suspended the Marvel family as well as himself and most of the other Marvel Family Universe characters in suspended animation for 20 years. So outside of their regular series and features, the Marvel family characters also appeared as guest stars in the Justice League of America series, in particular issues 135 through 137, which was for the Crisis on Earth-S story arc from 1976. And then they also appeared in Superman vs. Shazam, which was written by Jerry Conway with artists Rick Buckler and Dick Giordano, and this appeared in April 1978. Unfortunately, the comic book series was canceled later on in 1978, and the Shazam stories were relegated to the back pages of World's Finest Comics from 1978 to 1982, and Adventure Comics from 1982 to 1983. Captain Marvel, and often the whole Captain Marvel family, also co-starred with Superman in several issues of DC Comics Presents by writer Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas was a comic writer and editor who had been lured away from Marvel Comics to DC Comics in 1981 with the specific obligation that he would be the main writer of Shazam and Justice Society of America characters. The Marvel family also guest starred in several issues of the All-Star Squadron during this time. As the All-Star Squadron was set during World War II, several events of the comic fell concurrent with and referenced several of the original early 1940s Captain Marvel Fawcett stories. So, there's a little bit of TV information as well. The Kid Superpower Hour with Shazam was a NBC Saturday morning cartoon produced by Filmation Studios in 1981. This show consisted of two segments. The first segment was Hero High, where a group of students attended a high school for superheroes. The second segment, though, was Shazam, and this was based on the DC Comics series of the same name, and it had the adventures of Captain Marvel and Mary Marvel, as well as the other characters in the Marvel Family universe, like Uncle Marvel and Taki Tawny. And they had fights with enemies like Dr. Sivana, Mr. Mind, Black Adam, Mr. Atom, Eyeback, and more. And from time to time, the characters of the show would appear on other shows at the time, such as Isis from The Secrets of Isis, which also made appearances in animation form on Hero High. Now, episode 3 of the Kids Power Hour with Shazam focuses heavily on Mary Marvel, with the plot being Mary and Billy's cousin Freckles Marvel comes to visit them, and she brings Mary a book. That night, these villains called the Hiss Men emerge from the book. They capture Billy, Mary, and Freddy and drag them back to prehistoric times. So then the plot thickens from there, and the heroes have to deal with all of that. So Mary Marvel was voiced by Dawn Jeffrey on this show, who also voiced the characters of Freckles Marvel and Aunt Minerva. So finally, with the Crisis event in 1985 of Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC finally integrated all of the characters in the Fawcett universe fully into the DC universe. So that's all for now on my pre-Crisis Mary Marvel biography. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope someday to talk about the post-Crisis Mary Marvel. I have done a series of reviews, actually over 50 reviews, where I talk about Mary Marvel a great deal in Countdown to Final Crisis, and she's a very prominent character character there. So I'll include a link to that in the description box as well. As always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And as always, thank you for watching and being a part of DC Fans United.
End of line.